Welcome to Windows on the World. Now, we have covered the fake news agenda, those controlling the narrative. Today we're going to talk about public policy think tanks, and in particular Demos, who've just released a new paper. We've had quite a lot of interaction with Demos over the years. They've produced many different papers, and I want to outline today how fast this stuff gets into the media. So a paper is produced, the next thing, it's all over your mainstream media, and it's instructing and controlling and nudging the public into how to think. So from their website, it says Demos is Britain's leading cross-party think tank. The paper that they've just produced is called Talking to Ourselves, Political Debate Online and the Echo Chamber Effect. Now, on their website, before we get into this, it states, we produce original research, publish innovative thinkers, and host thought-provoking events. We have spent 20 years at the centre of the policy debate with an overarching mission to bring politics closer to people. What they mean is socially engineering, steering and nudging society through all the available media outlets, with really a bunch of change agents at the helm. Now, it also carries on here. Demos has always been interested in power, how it works and how to distribute it more equally throughout society. So here we're getting the diversity effect, the programming, all the change agents speak. And it says also, alongside quantitative research, Demos pioneers new form of deliberative work from citizens' juries and ethnography to groundbreaking social media analysis. Demos is an independent educational charity, and if you believe the propaganda, then you might want to buy some seaside property in Switzerland, but a lot of people actually do believe this propaganda. So this echo chamber, this paper that they produced, is now in the mainstream media. Within days of the paper being produced, it was all over Sky TV, BBC News, and if you listen to LBC, which is a London-based radio station, you'll hear them stating echo chamber all the time. What they're saying in this paper is that people who are more polarised in their political views are more likely to just interact with each other. Well, that's kind of obvious, but underneath all this is what they're trying to do is by nudging people into certain patterns of thought. So it carries on their website with the echo chamber, the propaganda paper that they've produced. It states within this paper, which you can download actually from the internet, it says there are a lack of gatekeepers and editorial control, anonymity, pseudo-sites, and of course echo chambers. The long-term effects of the echo chamber effect aren't yet known, but there are early indications that they threaten the health of our democracies. Polarisation of political opinion is on the rise. Some have placed this at the doorstep of echo chambers. So here we've got all this neuro-linguistic programmed speech coming in. Now, all mainstream media outlets, as we've said, have featured this echo chamber. And what they're trying to do is say that people are forming these groups and they're being misinformed. So the mainstream has to inform them. So it's really a panic about the fake news agenda, which has now been exposed. And I think it's kind of come on the back of that. But it says here, politically engaged Twitter users are more likely to interact with others who support the same party and share articles from publications which match their beliefs, confirming the existence of online echo chambers. Can you see how clever all this is? Unless you take it apart. They think it's clever, but once you learn how this stuff works, and if you look at anything from your local council, then you will find this kind of double speak, news speak, 1984 kind of programmed language. So they're basically telling you that all is you're going to experience within your own groups are echo chambers. Now, obviously they're trying to get out of the fact that people have found out about fake news, and fake news has backfired massively. It says, if the trend for using digital channels as tools to form and share beliefs continues, the echo chamber effect may represent a significant challenge to democracy. Well, there you go. That's really what they're saying there is that they have to control the narrative because they feel as though they're losing it. That does come out when you read this document, which is extremely long. I wouldn't actually recommend anyone going through it because it's mind-numbingly boring. But if you just read the opening paragraphs and what they're trying to say, it will give you an insight into how the narrative is being controlled, or how these people believe they are controlling the narrative. So that's a new paper by Demos, and we're going to be talking about that today. It's called Talking to Ourselves, the Political Debate Online and the Echo Chamber Effect. Welcome to Windows on the World. I'm talking to Kevin Boyle, and we're going to talk about this new paper, the Echo Chamber Effect from Demos. Now, I thought it was important that we bring this up because this echo chamber effect has gone all through the mainstream media, and Kevin interacts with mainstream media quite a lot. In fact, he talks to LBC, which is a London-based station, quite regularly and often gets shut down. So Kevin, welcome to Windows on the World.
Hello, Mark.
Yeah, I've listened to some of your interactions with some of the people on LBC, and I think this Demos paper it totally proves that they're getting a script from above.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
As you say, the themes are just repeated.
Yeah.
By numerous presenters. You know, they go with this echo chamber theme, you know, the fake news theme, and it all kind of happens together, and it's presented hour after hour, like successive shows, about 3 hours long, and you'll get the same topic debated, on each show, like 3 or 4 times in a day, basically pushing the same theme, but covertly. It's normally hidden behind a question. I mean, an excellent example is Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
Is Jeremy Corbyn failing? You know, is Jeremy Corbyn mad? Is he finished? You know, is Labour going to die forever? It's everything's framed in this kind of way, as if it's a kind of an impartial discussion about what's happening with the Labour Party. In fact, it's just really an attack on the Corbyn leadership. So
well, it's controlling the narrative, isn't it? So what they're
completely.
doing is they're framing it as a question, but it's really a statement.
It's a statement,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's how it works.
Yeah.
And we had Demos down in well, first about LBC. They've actually taken clips from a couple of my interviews and used them as adverts for the shows because it's a bit controversial. But they edit them to make the presenter look good, and they don't include the kind of thing that people like me, and there are quite a few like me, who actually just ring up to say, listen, enough of this stuff. You know, it's all about making their own narrative look like it's winning, but it isn't often, which is the encouraging thing. Often, often these things don't work. I mean, the fake news and the what's the other thing? The echo chamber.
Yeah.
People are just ringing up and saying, actually, you're the fake news and you're the echo chamber. You know, and this is like, people get it now.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
good.
so. The reason I brought this up is because of the speed that it went into the media.
Yeah.
So it's absolute proof that these think tanks like Demos are basically controlling the narrative, and these are meant to be a charity. They describe themselves as a charity, that they're working with people. They're empowering people, of course they are. You know, like your local council is empowering you with diversity. I mean, LBC, there was several of them using this echo chamber thing as though they'd been taken into a room and said, here's what you've got to talk about.
Well, maybe they have, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they have. Maybe that's it. Maybe these people get trained. Another technique that's very regularly used is they simply come on the show with fixed questions that they will demand an answer to of any member of the public who's getting difficult.
Yeah.
For instance, with the Putin thing, I remember once it was like a lot of people were defending Putin and Russia and Trump's idea of peace with Russia. A lot of people thought it was a good idea. And that Majid guy, anyway,
The Asian presenter
the
on there.
Asian guy,
Yeah.
Nawaz, he kept coming in with, do you think it's a good thing that Putin interfered directly in the Scottish referendum? He presented that as a fact, and he demanded an answer to that question.
Yes, as though it was a fact. Yeah.
He was trying to give you a kind of nowhere to go, and just trap people
Closed
with
question.
something that condemn them or contradicted themselves. It's just technique, it's just like silly stuff that they've been told to do. I mean, once you see them doing it time and time again, they've been told to do it. They've been trained for this stuff. They're change agents. They are, just exactly what they appear to be, which is establishment shills, really. That's what it comes down to. Now, it's not working, so that's good.
I think it is good, but let's go back now to this interaction with Demos a few years ago, where there was this guy, Jamie Bartlett, who was their big spokesman at the time. He came along with this guy, Carl Miller, and he'd written this paper called The Unreality of Conspiracy Theories, and they got a bit of a hammering, really, didn't they?
Well, yeah. See, the technique is, they're terrific manners, very nice man, lovely bloke, the manners were fantastic. And it was about talking reasonably about how, not about the events themselves, but how we discuss the events. And the thing is, they wouldn't go to the actual events themselves. And when we insisted that we just talk about what's true about the thing, they lost, they couldn't defend anything. They didn't, I'm not even sure they knew anything about it, to be honest. Had they studied it? No, So this is an operation. It's like, and this is how the whole society works, Mark. You know this, I know it. If you're in any job in the society, if you're a teacher, if you're in any industry, for NHS, doesn't matter what it is, you realise eventually that no one within the structure of this society that is making any decisions at all. Yeah. Everything's coming from the headmaster in the school. Decides nothing anymore, other than trivial things about people's careers. He doesn't decide what goes on, or what's taught, or what the syllabus is. And just teachers decide nothing. There's no more staff meetings anymore. You get consultants brought in to tell you what you're going to be doing. There's no participation in our own lives anymore. That's what's going on. And everything's coming from above, from these think tanks, and it's just guiding everybody. And they're presumably being told what to do by some Tavistocks or some City of London people or something. Yeah. And at the end of the day, people are sitting there beginning to realise this and saying, how come our kids can't afford a place to live? How come all the jobs are shit, How come there's nothing worth out there for our children? And people are starting to wake up to what's being done to them. Yeah. And it's all coming from remote authority. Remote authority is what we have to start saying no to, That's it.
Absolutely. I mean, this paper goes into quite some detail, this echo chamber paper, but basically it's about how big sites link into other sites, and they give all these groups of media. Interestingly, they have quite a few of what they would term to be alternative media outlets like Infowar and BuzzFeed, which we know are not really alternative media, but they've lumped them in. But they've got the BBC, The Guardian, Independent, Telegraph, Daily Mail, Mirror, Express, Sky News, FT.com, Standard, Breitbart, Bloomberg, Huffington Post, New Statesman, Canary, Metro, Economist, Labour List and Wings Over Scotland. But they missed out completely RT. I think that this echo chamber thing I thought was really important to get out to the public, because it shows you that these think tanks are hand in hand with the mainstream media. As soon as they produce a paper, it's on there. It's something that they're telling you that is happening in your life, and you've got to sort it out, because your narrative is being exploited by people who are getting you to think differently.
Yeah, and what people also need to do is to recognise that within their own environment, it's about time they started saying no to authority. They started to stop collectively committing suicide, cultural and economic suicide, that is leaving their kids in the place that we can all see they're going. I mean, people need to stop taking orders. Which is what we're conditioned to do. The whole system is conditioned to do.
We've covered this with our article, Big Society Change Agents. That's how everything around you is manufactured by these people who are brought into, they're not brought into your lives, they're brought into your area. This is actually geographical. They bring them into your area. So your local council now, there's nobody that's accountable there. And this is really about lack of accountability, isn't it? The whole thing is that you've got nowhere to turn.
It's the same thing. It's external directives, which are coming from the UN. I mean, you cover this.
Yeah.
Agenda 21 now, Agenda 2030. And actually, if you compare that to the Communist Manifesto, these 12 planks of that, you might put them up, Mark.
Yeah.
It's what is being implemented right here, and right now. And the culture of Marxism goes with that. And if people don't know, they must educate themselves. I mean, can I just say this?
Yes.
The whole point about Marxism, and actually really about any authoritarian system, is the way that it hijacks our God-given natural, ethical and moral instincts and puts them in service of their system of power. And that, it sadly went for the Catholic Church as much as anyone. It's what cultural Marxism particularly does. The people at the bottom are sincere. They do not want racism, which is a bad thing. They want more equality. The Soviets wanted more equality. It's what the thing was sold on. And what you get in the end is a concentration of power at the very top and complete tyranny. So it's the intention of the people leading these kind of these political authoritarian, the various types of political movements that there are, that is the problem. All the good intentions are at the bottom, and all the wicked intentions are with the authoritarians at the top. And they are so clever that they know how to manipulate us into doing what they want for their interests, and actually destroying the interests of ourselves and our own kids. This is what's going on.
Yeah. But it's the one-dimensional aspect of all this that's so easy. Once you know how it works, it's a busted template, isn't it? And that's what I keep trying to get over, that once this kind of language and this approach is known, it's like the Delphi technique that's used to control every public meeting when we went to the regeneration meetings in London. Which is happening all over the place. It's the same technique. It's gaining this assumed group consensus. And people walk out thinking, well, that's not what I agreed to. And they don't understand it because it's psychological warfare. That's actually what it is.
Absolutely.
And this is, again, does tie into the Communist Manifesto. They destroy the minds of the people. That's really important. You have to destroy the minds of the people to reconstruct them into this new paradigm, destroy private property, destroy the family, and basically make the state super powerful. And that's what we're seeing. This is why we got into this years ago, was looking at how, say, the legal system, the court system, and everything around was being corporatized to the extent where there's no rule of law. And nobody is above the golden rule of law. And that's what we have to hold these people accountable for. So these people like Demos are manipulating people's minds into an agenda that is not in their interest.
Well, millions of people are now beginning to understand this stuff. And I think I would agree with a guy called Mark Passio, whose work I watch quite a lot, that we need to stop blaming them and start blaming ourselves for our response to this stuff.
Absolutely.
We have to say, hey, take responsibility, oppose what's going on in your own environment, join up with people around you, and actually become active. But people don't know how to do that. But these kind of things, I think there has been a massive awakening in the public. But I think this is the next step.
Yeah.
That people will organise against the thing that we know is making war on us. It's war against the public. It's war against our society, and it's coming from the authority within, unfortunately.
Yeah, just want to finish off with this. Now, this should hopefully get you hopping mad. Here's a little quote. And they're talking really here about you, the thinking public. It states, the number and resilience of conspiracy theories are on the rise. Users are still struggling to distinguish truth and lies on the web. And anecdotal evidence suggests the proliferation of fabricated news stories is also accelerating. Yes, watch the BBC any day of the week and you'll see fabricated stories that are indeed accelerating. So that's that paper. It's a Demos paper. You can download it off the internet, and it's called the Echo Chamber Effect. It's called Talking to Ourselves: Political Debate Online and the Echo Chamber Effect. So there they are, patronising you, the public, and nudging and steering you into group consensus. So that's it for this part of the show. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Windows on the World. In the first half, we were talking about Demos and this new paper, which has gone straight into the public domain. Now, Demos is a think tank, and they are appearing to really start to control the narrative now, because this echo chamber paper, which was put out, was, as we said in the first half, all over the mainstream media within days, and it's now being used as part of the narrative. Now, the paper's called Talking to Ourselves, Political Debate Online and the Echo Chamber Effect. Now, it says here in the Demos paper, if the trend for using digital channels as tools to form and share beliefs continues, the echo chamber effect may represent a significant challenge to democracy, controlling the narrative here. The number and resilience of conspiracy theories are on the rise. Users are still struggling to distinguish truth and lies on the web. And anecdotal evidence suggests the proliferation of fabricated news stories is also accelerating. So this could be them panicking because the fake news thing seems to have backfired. So we're going to welcome Piers Corbyn now to the conversation. Now, this has gone straight into the public domain. What do you think about it, Piers?
Well, that's interesting. You see, there's a lot of these organisations in the background posing as being independent research bodies that come across above arguments and present the truth. Now, of course, they're nothing of the sort. Every one of those research bodies is actually backing or funded by somebody. And I think what we have now is Demos, which is really an organ of the globalisation agenda, is being pushed to the fore, or being used to the fore, because the globalisers are now on a total back foot. And their whole agenda is being disrupted. First of all, by Brexit, where they thought, well, you know, that's a one-off, and then Trump. And now they've got to really fight back, or globalisation is ended.
Yeah, it says on their website that Demos is Britain's leading cross-party think tank. We've also got Policy Exchange, of course, but this all trickles down really from the central Tavistock Institute, where a lot of this social policy and social engineering and programme originally came from. So this kind of propaganda isn't new, but what seems to be happening is that it's being used in every part of society now, isn't it? So this is very familiar to the sort of documents that you'd get from your local council, and indeed Demos are involved with the Prevent strategy, which was basically identifying people who are at risk from terrorists. You know, they're the people who could be radicalised by terrorists.
I mean, there was a thing today, or yesterday, with John McDonnell talking about a soft coup. It was put out there to Labour Party members. And why doesn't Jeremy just treat the British people like adults and come out and explain to them what's going on? I mean, he obviously knows what's going on, because he wouldn't be ignorant of what John McDonnell is doing in terms of the Labour Party. Why don't they just say, listen, we've got all this stuff going on subliminally within the political system. There are people trying to bring me down because they think I'm not on the right side of the arguments, and the commentaries that you hear are extremely biased on a very systematic and universal level in the media. I mean, wouldn't it be a great thing if Jeremy actually spoke to the British people and said something like that?
Well, of course, John McDonnell and Jeremy work closely together. So obviously, you know, when John McDonnell says this about a soft coup, Jeremy knows it's true. Of course. Well, I think issues like that, I mean, I agree with you. There has to be a frontal attack on the fake news which is spouted out on a daily basis by the BBC, LBC, all of the mainstream media, and they're attacking Jeremy relentlessly, and it is totally unacceptable. One alternative, of course, is building alternative news, you know, in internet news like Wonders on the World, but we are infinitesimal compared with the power of the mainstream media. So he's going to have to go on more of a frontal attack, that's true. But I'm sure he will, and maybe what John McDonnell is doing is the beginning of this.
Well, then the BBC would become, for a very short, brief while, the new Wonders on the World, wouldn't they? That'd be something, wouldn't it?
Well, you mean like for 5 minutes?
For 5 minutes, but that'd be significant, though.
Well, indeed, but I've noticed sometimes they suddenly find they can't get connections with people when they're on the phone saying things, or on air saying things.
Well, Trump's thing of calling the BBC and CNN fake news was a very powerful thing, because now it becomes...
Jeremy's used that phrase as well. He was interviewed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, on the BBC.
On
Yeah,
the BBC.
yeah.
He came on and
Yeah.
they talked some complete twaddle, and he said, "Oh, I didn't realise the BBC was going for fake news now."
Very good. That's a start.
It's a very good start, and I think that your point there was great. Like, what do we do about it? Yes, we need to get people who have got a voice now to stand up, like Trump has done. I think that could have started something off, because now we've openly got someone saying you're fake news, you're fake news. That's never happened before, has it? This is so big. But we were covering the Corbyn coup and what happened with all this the background stuff that was being manufactured against your brother, and we did several shows on that, and it didn't really work. But I agree with Kevin in this respect, that unless he stands up to the people who've got the knives in his back, it could all be over for him. What do you think about that, though, Piers?
Well, yeah, I mean, he is standing up, but of course, you know, if you're going to stand up, you've got to make sure you've got the right people beside you and behind you. Now, I'm sure he will have and does have. So it's a question of timing. I would say, but I agree. You know, we have to have more of an organised fight back against these monstrosities. Now, I've noticed that whenever there's a big attack, a scheme against Jeremy, they also always try and bring me in somehow. You know, Piers Corbyn has been seen with somebody unacceptable, and by the way, he's Jeremy Corbyn's brother. Yeah, you know. Now, I just got a phone call today saying that I had been associated with some anti-Semitic thing. Now, I haven't a clue what this is about. To my knowledge, I'm not associated with any anti-Semitic anything, and I've got plenty of Jews as friends and I've worked with Jews and employed Jews. So, you know, it's a complete, utter nonsense. But the fact I've been told there's something going on is probably because the people that spread these stories are at the same time doing the soft coup, and it all comes from the same people. So, you know, they put me in there as another way of attacking Jeremy.
Well, I think it's very important.
Make it up. It is falsity. Fake news, fake news, fake news.
Of course, but this has been allowed to go on for a long time, and part of that coup against your brother was brought about by this thing with Ruth Smith and people alleging all this anti-Semitism, which was never proven, and it was all
complete rubbish.
Of course,
I know plenty of Jews in the party that go raging and say, "Look, I'm Jewish, and it's lies, it's lies, it's lies."
Yes, but that's not the point, is it? It's like it's the impact it has on the media. But with this Shai Massot, this Israeli agent, openly saying that he can subvert the democracy of the country and bring people down, well, this is very, very important. And it probably would be a good time now for people to really start thinking. Are we going to go? Are we going to go like Trump has said and stop this lobbying that's creating all this division and is steering British politics in a direction it shouldn't be going in?
Well, we should stop lobbying, making limitations on them. But of course, you know, there's a difference here. Trump is now the president of the United States of America. Jeremy is not the prime minister.
Yeah.
Although there are things he can say in Parliament which can change the course of things, such as about the tax allowances and so on. You know, I mean, his standing up in Parliament changed things. He brought to Parliament the agenda, the statement that austerity is a political choice. Now, before then, the Labour Party said, "Oh, we've got to have austerity." No, it's complete rubbish. Now, the Labour Party, rank and file thinking, everybody's thinking is austerity is a political choice. We don't accept it. Whereas before, under Blair, it was duty to suppress everybody.
What do you think about that, Kevin? Because we've talked about this quite a lot, over the years, really, the power and influence of especially the Israeli lobby in this country.
That's the trouble, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what the whole anti-Semitism thing is about, is prevention. You go in there because of the influence of this particular lobby. I mean, it's a trap that's been manufactured. It's kind of a place people are afraid to go, really. I don't know. It's a difficulty. That, I mean, when you've got 80% of the Tory party Friends of Israel, and when you've got what's going on in Labour now, I mean, you know, people are afraid to actually say things they may be thinking. That's how it actually works.
That's how the mind control works, and
that is sadly what most things are about. I mean, government is mind control. It actually means mind control.
Yes.
Govern means govern is control. Meant, the Latin root of the word meant is mind. Mental mind control. There it is. That's what government is.
Which brings us back to this paper, because that's kind of what they're saying, really.
Maybe right. I don't know.
Yes, they're basically saying
whatever
that.
the word is, I'm not.
They're saying in this paper that there is a danger that this is going to be a huge threat to democracy if people actually are allowed to think for themselves. That's what this paper's really about, and it's now in the open. So as far as this Demos paper goes, because you in the first half were talking about LBC and your interactions with them, which can be quite amusing, but many of the presenters on that are starting to use this echo chamber thing. They're using it on the BBC and they use it on Sky News. They're using it everywhere. So do you think this could be the end of this kind of propaganda? Because it's starting to get a bit tired now, isn't it?
Gosh, don't know. They're not going to stop trying.
Not going to stop trying, no. But as far as its effectiveness goes, it seems to have been nullified quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not working for them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to see where the powers that be, if we want to call them that, are going to go next, because I think the alternative media, including people like yourself, and there's a very large one worldwide, have had a powerful effect and are kind of winning the arguments. That's the thing. I mean, the people who want to argue with you they want to talk about everything except the subject you're talking about.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the content of what you're saying. They want to talk about the culture and just mislead you. But the next step for us, as I said, I think before, is for us to start thinking how we organise and oppose. Where they go next, I don't know. One fears it might be war and stuff like that. I mean, this is what these people do. I don't know if Piers has got anything more intelligent to say about that than me. I can't. It's hard to see where they go once their methods start to fail, and they are failing. Thank God.
Yes. That was the whole point of this section of the show, really. That it's starting to get a bit tired now. But there's something within this language and the deviant way that they're using propaganda that is very repulsive, and that is what to me comes across. I find it highly offensive reading this stuff, but. This is the sort of stuff that people are getting from their local councils. It's what's happening in public meetings. I mean, in these regeneration meetings all over London and Britain, where people are getting treated the same way by what we're calling change agents, which are these people who are coming in. This is exactly the same thing. So what they've created is false reality, but it can never stand up to truth, and that's why you get ad hominem attacks. And it's the same with our videos. When we're talking about issues like climate change, it's all like, where did you get these two morons from? And people go, well, he's an astrophysicist, actually, and have you noticed that he's got a lot of papers out? And they never respond to this stuff. But it's name calling. And that's exactly what this is, a more subtle version of name calling, isn't it, really?
Well, if your basic method is lies, what else can you do? What was it? Solzhenitsyn said it, didn't he? He said, whoever chooses violence as his method must choose lies as his principle. And that's what we have. We have a warmongering class of expansionist, imperialist, financiers. And how are they going to get their project done? People don't want to fight with each other. We want peace. We want our kids to be happy. We want nice things for everybody, And we end up with endless war. Trump wants peace with Russia. He can't have it, apparently. And how do you get that? How do you achieve this stuff? You've got to get into people's minds and fill them with lies, because it's the only thing that will make that thing happen. Because nobody wants it. That's it.
Yeah, Piers. So I'm going to ask you a question here. So you're a climate change denier, right? Wait, hang on, Mr. Corbyn. Just wait a minute, because I'm the mainstream media.
Just wait a minute.
And do you not think that all this you're doing there is playing to your own echo chamber? Explain that to me, please.
Well, the concept of echo chambers is a recent creation in order to attack those who are actually speaking the truth scientifically and politically. And it's like Goebbels said, the way to get your message across is to accuse your enemy of what you're doing. And that causes total confusion. And these are the sort of things they do, you see. They create all sorts of... Well, it's been... since Brexit, you can see what's been going on. If you understand now more and more, you see there's a globalisation agenda. People have to get their heads around this. There's not just these little independent politicians doing things, not at all. A lot of them are funded in all sorts of monstrous ways by the arms industry, by various lobby groups and so on. But in the end, the vast majority of mainstream politicians and newspapers are working for the globalisation agenda. It's not a conspiracy. They're just on the same boat and they realise, my God, this is the boat we're on. Let's stay here and defend our boat. But look at what's happened. Brexit, scare stories, and they failed. Trump, scare stories, and they failed. So now they're moving more into basically direct control of people's minds by this demos stuff and so forth.
I'm not sure they've failed with Trump, though, have they? Have they failed?
Yeah. Well, today in the papers they're suddenly saying that we've got a very different Donald Trump taking the stage. Well, you know, what he said at that speech about immigration and so forth was exactly the same as what he said before. It's just that the mainstream media have realised that their lies are now being seen through. So I don't think he's changed. I mean, it's open for discussion. But
he didn't talk about détente and peace with Russia though last night, did he?
Well, I don't know.
He's going to be knocked off their big one. That's the big one, isn't it? Like, you know.
No.
We're not going to attack anyone.
The big one is the massive infrastructure spending to bring jobs back to America. That's the big one, and he's put that in there. I think the Russian thing is relatively a sideshow, and it'll come out in practice that, you know, the arms industry is going to be upset. But I dare say they'll find other wars to do, you know, where other countries are having wars.
They're not going to give up on that one, are they, though? Look, because it's been the Russians for quite some time.
No, they won't give up on that. But the point about the way the globalisation agenda is going, and they're failing, is that I think the anti-establishment movement is going to get stronger now because people are seeing through it. Now, that is their big problem. So they're going to have to start closing down the internet and Twitter and so forth. And already, you see, this demos is to devalue it. Say, well, be careful what you see on the internet, it might be lies. Well, of course it might be. But they should say, be careful what you see on the BBC.
If they
a lot of it is lies.
If they close it down, Piers, it'll take to the streets, won't it? I mean, it'll make people actually connect with each other. Even that will work against them, I think. I mean, people are happy doing this, working from your computer now. But
well, it depends where the streets are. Because if you're living in, outer suburbs of America, you can't meet people much. But we're talking about cities where, of course, I'm all for taking to the streets at the appropriate moment. Yes.
Yes, well, we'll leave it there for this part of the show, and indeed this show. So, the Twitter thing's quite interesting. The Demos echo chamber states politically engaged Twitter users are more likely to interact with others who support the same party and share articles from publications which match their beliefs, confirming the existence of online echo chambers. Now, that's just saying that people who agree with each other hang out. But underneath it, as we said in the first part of the show, which I'm reiterating, it's not about that at all. It's about saying that basically you're all getting misinformation and you've got to go back to the proper sources, which is the mainstream media. That's what they're telling you. So they're basically using the intelligence services principles of deny, disrupt, degrade and deceive, the 4 Ds. So they're using it against you, the public. That's it from Windows on the World. We'll see you soon.